Today we'll be discussing the New York Times shocking investigation into President Trump's tax information,
followed by a look at the first presidential debate between Joe Biden and Donald Trump.
And finally, we're committed to bringing you the news, views, and info to go on this episode of the Report Roundtable Discussion. I'm Andrea Carvajal.
I'm Brie Eastlick.
I'm Jorge Flores.
And I'm Amanda Mendoza. As you can see, we are continuing to practice social distancing and are going to conduct our episodes via Zoom for the foreseeable future. Although we cannot be together in person, we invite you all to continue to be a part of the discussion. Follow us on Twitter at The Report CSUF or on our Titan TV Instagram at Titan TV CSUF to keep in touch with us and view our new content.
Begin today's episode with an extensive expose about President Donald Trump's tax information published by the New York Times over the weekend. Trump, often depicting himself as an extremely successful billionaire tycoon, reportedly did not pay taxes for 10 out of 15 years, beginning in the year 2000, due to his claiming more losses than earnings in those years. With much more to unpack, we turn to CNN reporter Joe Johns.
Just 2 days before the first presidential debate, a new report revealing some of the information President Trump's worked hardest to hide. His tax returns. A New York Times investigation says Trump paid only $750 in federal income taxes in 2016 and 2017. Soon after the report published, the president called it fake news, saying he's paid a lot of taxes.
Well, first of all, I paid a lot, and I paid a lot of state income taxes, too. It'll all be revealed. It's going to come out.
But the Times reports the president has been fighting with the IRS for years over a nearly $73 million tax refund he claimed. If he loses that battle, it could cost him over $100 million.
Right now, when you're under audit, you don't do it.
Despite the president's claim, tax information can be made public even if he's under audit. The Times also says Trump paid no federal income taxes in 10 of the 15 years before he became president because he reported losing much more money than he made. This, another detail in the Times investigation painting a damning portrait of Trump's success as a businessman, a selling point he used to rally supporters on the campaign trail. Adding to that, the Times reported last year that based on tax forms from 1985 to 1994, he lost more money than nearly any other individual American taxpayer. The report also reveals the president has spent nearly all of the $427 million he made on the TV show The Apprentice to help fund his other businesses and owes more than $300 million in loans that he's personally responsible for over the next 4 years.
It's the latest reminder how clear the choice is here in this race between Park Avenue and Scranton. You have in Donald Trump a president who spends his time thinking about how he can work his way out of paying taxes. With Joe Biden, you have somebody who has a completely different perspective on what it means to be a working family in this country.
Alrighty, you guys. Now, first of all, before we really get into it, I want to go back in time to when President Nixon was in office. Now, he faced a lot of controversy and backlash because when he released his tax returns, it showed that he had only paid a really, really small amount. So people were giving him a really hard time about it. Presidents ever since have released their tax returns so that people can see exactly how much they're giving. Now, Trump has stated that he paid millions in taxes and that he's willing to release his tax returns once he is no longer under audit by the IRS, which he states, quote, treats me badly, end quote. Except CNN stated that the president is under no obligation to hold his tax returns while under audit. He can release them now. CNN also stated that the IRS already finished auditing his tax returns from 2002 to 2008. So why hasn't he released those ones? Now, there's a lot going on in this story, and with him saying that he's paying millions but not showing proof, honestly, you would think that by New York Times exposing him, saying that he only paid the $750, you would think that he'd want to prove his point and release his tax returns, but he still hasn't. So that really makes you question, what are you hiding, Donald Trump? I don't know. What do you guys think?
I don't see the problem with sharing his taxes if he told the truth. So I'm wondering the same thing as you are, Brie. Why would he do this? Why would he try hiding this information from the American people, whether or not it was a quote unquote big deal? I think it's still about establishing trust and being honest. What do you think, Jorge?
Well, totally agreed. And we gotta be very conscious about the political view. We are in elections. And for you, trying to hide these very important facts about your private life in other years in the past, that's very important. I don't really understand when he's starting to publish these facts, and at the end of the New York Times says that $750 were paid between 2016 and 2017 in taxes. I cannot believe it. What do you think, Andrea?
Yeah, so CNN even reported during the presidential debate that Trump stated, "I don't want to pay tax." Just because you're a millionaire does not mean you obviously, or president, does not mean you do not get to pay tax. Tax avoidance is a serious crime, and not even a president should be exempt from these tax laws. Like Bree stated, there was a big concern with Nixon paying a small tax payment, and that made a huge controversy. It's the right of the American people to know what these tax returns are, especially as a president. You are not above the law.
Exactly. And now, if we move forward to other news, last Tuesday marked the first of the 3 presidential debates between President Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Fox News Sunday anchor Chris Wallace led a debate asking both candidates a variety of questions from 6 topics: past records, the Supreme Court, COVID-19, the economy, race and violence, and the election. Following the debate, many voted that Wallace seemed to struggle to objectively maintain order between the 2 candidates, often having to stop recurring arguments despite the pre-established rules in place. For more on this hot topic, we turn to CNN reporter Mary McCullough.
A clash of policy and personalities in Cleveland.
Will you shut up, man?
Listen,
This is so unprecedented.
There's nothing smart about you.
President Donald Trump and Democratic nominee Joe Biden squaring off in their first face-to-face matchup this election.
Everything he's saying so far is simply a lie.
I've done more than you've done in 47 years, Joe.
The candidates sharing a debate stage as the U.S. faces the coronavirus pandemic, a lagging economy, and a racial justice movement that has gripped the nation. An opportunity for each candidate to paint their opponent as wholly unfit to lead the nation throughout it all.
He wants to shut down this country, and I want to keep it open.
The president has no plan.
Moderator Chris Wallace challenging the candidates on 6 topics during the 90-minute event, including the Supreme Court.
We should wait and see what the outcome of this election is.
We have a phenomenal nominee.
COVID-19.
The president has no plan.
We got the masks. We made the ventilators. You wouldn't have made ventilators. And now we're weeks away from a vaccine.
I know how to do the job.
The economy.
We closed it down, and now we're reopening, and we're doing record business.
He's going to be the first president of the United States to leave office having fewer jobs in his administration than when he became president.
President Trump also facing new scrutiny over a recent New York Times report showing he paid no income tax in 10 of 15 years, beginning in 2000.
I paid millions of dollars in taxes.
In Cleveland, I'm Mary Maloney.
And guys, I'll give you a quick analysis about this topic. First of all, I understand 2 points. The first one is that that's correct. I also think that the moderator was kind of biased because was trying to support a little bit. It seemed that he supported a little bit Joe Biden instead of Donald Trump. He was also interrupting him when he was trying to talk. And I have 2 points of view. The first one is that when it comes to Joe Biden, he was trying to lead the debate. He was trying to be respectful at all times. I think the only factor that it didn't help was that he lacked confrontation. He didn't talk directly to Trump, and most of the times. And when it comes to Trump, well, I'm going to start giving some of my opinions that I consider that they are very important. First of all, Joe Biden was trying to talk to the camera, to us, to the audience, to the voters. Donald Trump, he was just trying to confront Joe Biden. He didn't even care, I think, about the audience and what we were thinking. Also, 2 important things that I consider that Donald Trump made him to lose this debate. The first one is that he didn't want to acknowledge the white supremacy that we're living in this country today. And that's a big deal. For me, in this case, this debate was just chaotic. And it was just like a kindergarten debate between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And at the end, Donald Trump, he was trying also to get into his personal life, Joe Biden's son. So I don't think that was good enough. I didn't like the debate at all. And I wish for the next 2 debates, we're going to see something more professional. At least that's what I hope. What do you think, Andrea?
So Howard Kurtz from Fox News said, it was the presidential debate as room brawl, as television shout fest, as exhausting insult derby. Personally, This was a hard debate to watch. They were talking over each other. President Trump was not letting anyone have their turn to talk, and he almost started every argument with, look at how well I made the economy. Biden was laughing and smirking a lot at Trump's remarks, kind of unprofessional of both sides. It was almost like watching children argue. No one was getting to the point of the questions. It was a battle of who's better and not what would you do as president. Trump didn't even denounce white supremacy, like you said, Jorge, by saying, stand back and stand by. Someone has to do something about the left wing and Antifa. They took many jabs at each other, with Biden even saying, and I quote, "You're the worst president America has ever had," unquote. To me, this was not a debate, and it is so important to fact check everything that is being said, because new voters need to educate themselves, like you said, Jorge, and know exactly what they are voting for. This was a news frenzy, and Chris Wallace, the moderator, is an amazing journalist, but couldn't even moderate these two. What do you think, Bree?
I really agree with you guys. I think that this really was a chaotic debate, and I don't think it really was a debate either. It was just them jabbing back and forth at each other. You know, everyone was giving Chris Wallace a hard time for how he was moderating and, you know, how he handled all the situations. Although I don't think he handled it well, I am going to kind of lay off of that just because I think that it was not easy for him, and I would not have wanted to be in his situation trying to deal with both of them. Another thing is that there was barely any time where one of them wasn't interrupting each other. And they went over the rules beforehand for months about how they were going to give each other 2 minutes of time with no interruptions. That did not happen in this debate. Within a minute, there was always some kind of interruption between each other. And one thing that I do want to fact check is that President Trump stated that Hunter Biden, Joe's son, was dishonorably discharged from the Navy because he got drug tested and he had cocaine in his system. Now, this isn't an offense that calls for a dishonorable discharge. This is actually just considered a general discharge. So for Trump to say that, that's actually not true. The Washington Post came out with all the fact checking of everything that was said in the debate. And if you're interested, I really recommend going on to the Washington Post to read that, because it goes through every single thing. So I definitely think that it's a good read, and to make sure that you are for sure getting the facts, especially from this debate. What about you, Amanda?
I completely agree, Bree, Jorge, and Andrea. I think the whole debate was a mess. People were talking over each other. However, I would say that I think Biden won this round. Though he did call Trump a clown, I think what was interesting is that when Trump started to interrupt whatever Biden was saying, instead of engaging later on, he decided to speak straight to the American public. At one point, he even encouraged them to vote. And I think that made him look very professional in the end. I believe that the audience who watched the debate are going to be more convinced to vote for Biden than they were before. So I think that was a very interesting thing to look at. And I remember they spoke on topics such as COVID, race and violence. And like Jorge said, Trump failed to denounce white supremacists. And I think that is not a very good look in this debate. Now, moving on to some CSUF news, a software used to prevent cheating while students take remote exams is raising many privacy concerns. First introduced in 2013, Proctorio is a powerful software capable of monitoring eye movement, body language, and screen content. One student claimed it was a, quote, invasion of privacy, unquote. According to the Daily Titan, this software gained popularity earlier this year during the transition to virtual learning. Soon after the switch, some CSUF professors saw a substantial increase in students' exam scores. However, many remain skeptical of the invasive software. In response to these concerns voiced by students, the Dean of Students even hosted a Q&A video about the program. So do any of your professors use Proctorio, and how do you guys feel about implementing this in our classes?
So I personally don't use this software, but my mom actually is going back to school right now, and she does. She doesn't go to CSUF. She actually goes to a junior college that's close to home for us. But she takes majority of her tests using this program, and it's a lot. She does not like it, and she thinks that it's very much of a hassle to have to go through, because you have to prove that you're alone. You have to show your ID to prove that you're the one taking the tests. You have to have your screen on the whole entire time. It's always recording you. And if you make some sort of movement that the software doesn't like, it takes a screenshot and sends it to your professor to try and prove that you're cheating, even though you're not. You know, she she has to tell everyone in the house when she's taking these tests. And we have 2 windows on our doors that lead to our loft. And so she has to cover those so that she doesn't get distracted and look up, and then it takes a picture of her. So she has to go through this whole process, and it's a lot, and it's truly just not anything that I think should be used right now, because who knows how everyone's household is? Who knows if there's little kids around, or, any kind of distraction. Right now, everyone's house is different, and I truly do not think that this is the time to bring in this software. Otherwise, it's just going to give more people another thing to be anxious about and worried about. They don't want to be caught cheating when they're not. It's not fair.
I totally agree with you. And you mentioned something very, very clear, Bree. Pressure. You're adding pressure to the students. And right now we're living weird times of COVID-19. I think adding a pressure to your life, to your mental health when it comes academically and professionally, I don't think that's good for you. In my case, I will feel a lot of pressure and this anxiety to be like, okay, now I gotta be in my test. What should I do? Should I just tell, like you were saying about your mom, tell everyone to shut up and just be super concentrated? I don't think that's the best idea to do. And also, I'm a firm believer that this is an invasion to our privacy, because concepts like webcams and eye movement, that's very, very specific. And I don't think that's going to be good enough. I think that's going to be very controversial for students, because probably already the students that are going to try to rebel.
It's definitely an invasion of privacy, like you said, Jorge. I even block my own webcam when it's not in use, just because I'm that suspicious of everything. One professor of mine at CSUF was going to use Proctorio, but many students in my class voiced their concerns, and ultimately the professor decided against the program for exams, which I was very thankful for. There's a huge worry for professors of cheating, but I believe maybe if we just do timed questions and answers, it doesn't give people or students much time to look at books so that they know that they've studied and know the material enough. According to Vice, law students around the country are organizing to fight against the use of any kind of digital proctoring software, like ExamSoft on bar exams. There have been reports that these programs discriminate against people of color on the facial recognition technology. And already, if these red flags are appearing and students are uncomfortable with it, I truly believe we should not be using softwares that leave students more anxious, especially in the times of virtual instruction. Our final story is going to leave you questioning why teenagers are taking part in a new TikTok challenge. The US FDA recently issued a warning of, quote, serious problems with high doses of the allergy medication Benadryl. Teenagers are reportedly taking higher doses of Benadryl to induce hallucinations. However, according to CNN Health, too much of this medication can cause health issues such as heart problems, seizures, comas, and even death. The FDA cited reports of teenagers ending up in emergency rooms or even dying after partaking in the Benadryl challenge. As of now, the FDA is urging all caregivers to lock away any over-the-counter medication out of the reach of teens and children to prevent any misuse of the medication. The popular video app TikTok is also removing any posts related to the challenge due to safety concerns. TikTok and YouTube challenges are nothing new, especially to teenagers and young adults that go to these extreme lengths just to get high followings and likes. These challenges are extremely dangerous, and we can remember when teenagers were eating Tide Pods, and those were banned for a while due to putting these teens in the hospital. What do you guys think of these challenges? Why do you think people continue to do them?
Well, I think that kids and teens are young and very impressionable. If they see their peers consistently doing something that garners attention, they may feel inclined to join as well. I also think that boredom may also influence them to engage in more risky behavior so they can entertain themselves as well as an audience, which is very concerning to me. What do you think, Bree?
No, I agree with what you guys are saying. I think that also they're looking to get views, they're looking to get likes so that, possibly they can, rack up a little bit of cash too on the side. Like you said, Andrea, there's been so many of these challenges. One of them is called the Bright Eye Challenge, where you mix bleach, hand sanitizer, jelly, and shaving cream into a bag, and you hold it on your eye. You would think that people wouldn't want to do this challenge because it can literally make you go blind, but people are doing it. They're doing it to get these views. They're doing it to hopefully get some cash. So honestly, I don't know. All I'm saying is please don't risk your lives and your bodies for views, because it's not worth it in the end. What about you, Jorge?
Exactly. And there are two concepts here, guys. I think most people, they are trying to get fame instead of success. And there's a big difference between these two concepts. They think like it's easier just to go for fame, the likes, the cash, but at what cost? I mean, your life, your health? I'll tell them it's better for you to start focusing in other more productive things than just on social media. So guys, be cautious of the content you are getting into your life. Be cautious of social media. Be cautious of the social pressure that other people and other trends they are trying to get into your life. There is no need to go into that challenge. That is why I congratulate TikTok for banning or trying just to diminish these kind of posts, because that's going to be a really big difference into people's life.
Absolutely. Now, how about we head back for a little CSUF news once again before we wrap up. Now, Titans, do you have an old mattress that you don't know what to do with? OC Waste and Recycling has recently teamed up with the Mattress Recycling Council to save California's environment one mattress at a time. Orange County landfills are among the largest in the state and receive more than 5 million tons of waste per year. So in order to help alleviate this, the two companies have created a free recycling program to discard your used mattresses. Starting today, OC residents can look on their website to find your local Bye-Bye Mattress collection site. Now with that, that's all the time we have for today on the Report Roundtable Discussion. Have a safe week, everyone, and stay tuned for more news, views, and info. I'm Bree Slick.
I'm Andrea Carvajal.
I'm Jorge Flores.
And I'm Amanda Mendoza. As always, stay fresh, Fullerton.